It was a typical day in our household. My 8-year-old daughter was glued to her Minecraft game, recording her gameplay to upload to YouTube later. As I was going about my business, I suddenly heard her sniffling from the computer. I approached her, curious about what was wrong, but she didn't want to tell me. Something seemed off, and so I decided to keep an eye on her. Moments later, it became apparent what was going on. Some kid, who we nicknamed Little Shithead, was harassing not only my daughter, but also all the other kids on her server. He was spouting hateful comments and making violent threats, claiming he would hack my daughter's IP and steal her information. This was not only inappropriate, but also dangerous, especially in a game meant for kids. I got my fiancé involved, and together we hatched a plan. We realized that our daughter had recorded the entire incident, and we began by Googling LS's username. We found a page where he was applying to be a mod for a server, which gave us valuable information about him. He claimed to be 15, liked hockey, and used to live in Toronto before moving to Florida. But the real bombshell was his Skype contact info, which included his first and last name. We knew his name now, and that gave us an edge. I went to Facebook and searched for LS's name, but there was no profile under that name. On a hunch, I searched for just his last name and narrowed my results to Florida. Several dozen hits popped up, and I had to comb through each one until I found a middle-aged man with the same last name as LS. His profile said he was born in Toronto and now lived in Florida. I found LS's dad. I messaged his dad on Facebook, asking if he had a son named LS who played Minecraft under that username. After he confirmed that I had the right guy, my wife began telling him everything that LS had said to our daughter. We also sent him the recorded video as proof. We waited in silence for a few days, wondering what the outcome would be. Finally, we received a message from LS's dad. LS had his computer taken away for the entire summer, and his parents were furious with him. We also found out that LS had been lying about his age and was only 11 years old. It was clear that he had a rough few months ahead of him. I was glad that we were able to take action against this cyberbully and make him face the consequences of his actions. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to us knowing that we could protect our daughter and other kids from harmful behavior online.
It was the early 1990s, and I had just landed a job at a telemarketing company in Logan, Utah. The company's initials were SMC, and it promised to pay me $10 an hour. On my first day, I was given a script to read, and I quickly realized that the job entailed scamming elderly people out of their hard-earned money. The methods were grossly unethical, and I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't stand to work for a company that preyed on the elderly, so I quit after my second day. When I received my paycheck, I noticed that I was paid minimum wage instead of the promised $10 per hour. Furious, I marched back to the office to demand an explanation. The office manager sneered at me as I approached him. "You didn't finish the 90-day probationary period, so you only get minimum wage," he said. "That's bullshit," I retorted. "You never mentioned a probationary period during training, and it wasn't in the contract I signed." "See ya, wouldn't want to be ya," the office manager said as he showed me the door. I was livid. I knew I had to take action. I called the city offices and learned that SMC didn't have a business license, so I reported them. Less than an hour later, I watched as the police showed up and told them to shut down operations until they obtained a license. It took them 2 weeks. When SMC was back in business, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I devised an elaborate plan to get myself on their call list and recorded several of their employees' attempts to sell me their garbage. It was legal to record calls in Utah, and I knew what they were doing was not only unethical but illegal. I reported SMC to a local news station, and the consumer reporter Debbie Dujanovic did a 2-part story on the scummy company. I also reported them to the FBI. Months went by and I thought nothing of it until one day I heard about Operation Disconnect, a nationwide sting that had arrested over 200 people involved in dishonest telemarketing companies. The owner of SMC was among them. "See ya, wouldn't want to be ya."
My first car was my pride and joy, a 1984 Jeep CJ7. It was a sweet ride, and I was lucky to have it as a dirt-poor teenager in the 90s. I was working midnights at a gas station, saving up money for upgrades and repairs to make it even cooler. One day my brother asked if he could borrow the Jeep to take his date to a party. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. It was my brother after all, and I trusted him. Around 1 a.m., I got a call from my brother. He was frantic, telling me that he had left the keys in the Jeep and it had been stolen. I couldn't believe it. My heart sank as I thought about my beloved Jeep in the hands of some unknown criminal. But then, something miraculous happened. As I was still on the phone with my brother, I saw headlights pull into the gas station. It was my Jeep. The thieves had driven it straight to the place where I worked. As luck would have it, the gas gauge on my Jeep was broken and always read empty, and I worked at the only 24-hour gas station in the area. I pressed the silent alarm and proceeded to fill up my Jeep. It was a full service station, and I wasn't about to let those thieves get away without paying for the gas they used. While they were busy pumping the gas, I saw an opportunity to slip the key out of the ignition and into my pocket. I didn't want to risk them driving off again. When the thieves finished filling up the tank, they argued among themselves about who had the keys last. The delay was enough for the police to arrive. I explained the story to the officer half a dozen times before he understood. The thieves had a stunned look of disbelief on their faces that I'll never forget. The cops were belly laughing as they told the story to dispatch, all the while the thieves sat in cuffs in the back of the squad car. The next day, the story made the major newspapers.
I'd always dreamed of renting a house and finally having some space and privacy, but that dream was shattered within the first week by my creepy neighbor Mike. He was the kind of guy who seemed like a fully functional adult, but he had never lived outside of his parents' home. He spent every possible minute cleaning or admiring his truck, so he practically lived in the driveway. When he wasn't bragging about some asshole move he had just pulled on someone, he was hitting on the wives and daughters of anyone on the street. It all started during the winter, when I started noticing footsteps in my yard in the morning. I found out that Mike was walking into my yard to look in my windows and see what I was watching or playing at night. I quickly bought a simple security system and put a few cameras up, and the creepy behavior stopped. But then he started mowing my side yard the day after I did. I asked my landlord about this, and he told me that Mike considered it his property and kept arguing about the property line. It was just grass, so I let it go. Mike's behavior only got worse from there. If I had guests over, he would stare at them and sometimes make comments when I wasn't around to hear him. If I was in the backyard, he would have a reason to be in his backyard. If I was in the house or the front yard, he was in his driveway, where he could see into my living room. If I was mowing the yard, he would get out a lawn chair and sit and watch, putting it away as soon as I was done. Things finally came to a head when I caught him sending his dog into my front yard one morning, instead of letting it out into his fenced-in backyard like he normally would. I told him to stay on his side of the property line, and he threatened to break into my house and smash my cameras and computer. I had no choice but to call the cops, and he got off with just a warning. Last fall, I decided enough was enough and told my landlord I was going to move out. That's when I found out that Mike was on workers' comp for an injury he got at work and was now bragging about how he was using his workers' comp checks to set up his own under-the-table landscaping business. My landlord, like most of the neighborhood, didn't really like Mike. The landlord's son and family lived across the street, and Mike had hit on the wife a few times over the years, and had even started trying to talk to their 17-year-old daughter. One day when Mike had his new work truck and trailer, with his name and number on the door, I made a video of him working on his yard and carrying 50 bags of mulch and climbing ladders. I sent the videos and pictures to the fraud department of the workers' comp office. Today I just found out that he was found guilty of fraud, ordered to pay back every dollar, and may end up in jail.
Please like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you.